The DFL in the House approved or voted to approve more than $10,000 in legal fees for this Biana Virnig as she negotiated a settlement with a former employer, right? And Hauser obtained the agreement and learned that Vernig received a settlement from a former employer for $108,224.
Woo.
And yet the taxpayers paid her $10,391.40 legal fees. We paid for that.
Got it.
The boldness of these people knows no end. The agreement stresses the two sides are to endeavor to avoid publicizing the agreement. Well, that's too bad. It's publicized. To the extent under Minnesota law. DFL leaders on the House Rules Committee declined to release the detailed agreement before approving $10,391.40, but Hauser dug it up. Okay, and now follow this, because Haidt thinks there might be a devil's advocacy role to play.
All right.
This all started when Representative Biana Virnig of Eagan was elected to the House as a Democrat in a special election just this past year and sworn in last January, serving a district in the Eagan-Mendota Heights area. Her new position as a state lawmaker created a conflict with her employer, which is an outfit called Brightworks. It's a nonprofit established by the Minnesota legislature in 1976 to provide services to public schools and school districts. Let me stop right there. Can you imagine, given how we're led, how many of these types of outfits there must be?
There's got to be hundreds, if not thousands.
So she worked for something called Brightworks. But then she also got elected to the legislature. When she returned to her employment, her employer dramatically cut back her hours and her pay because of her new gig as a legislator.
Is it a conflict of interest deal? Is that
We're
why?
getting there.
Oh, sorry.
Well, maybe it's because she wasn't at work. She was a legislator now.
Sure.
So when she did show up for work, it wasn't nearly as often or as long. They cut her hours and pay based on her new job she held as a part-time state legislator. This is according to Representative Jamie Long, a DFL majority leader. This is all this week. Since this was related to her work as a Minnesota representative, we are proposing we pay for those legal costs. In other words, the legislature is imagining a connection between Brightworks and the legislature. If for no other reason that it was the company came into being as a result of the legislature back in 1976. I'm not buying it. The proposed payment of legal fees by taxpayers generated protests from Republicans on the House Rules Committee. I don't see why we should be paying for her legal fees. If we just heard it's never been done before, and I find this to be troubling, said Representative Jim Nash of Waconia. I have no idea why taxpayers should be on the hook with it, especially when we don't even know what the settlement is. Well, we do know now. It's $108,000. Representative Kristen Robbins, Republican Maple Grove, said during a committee hearing, did she get a settlement for $10,000, $100,000, $1 million? No, we now know it's $108,000. The committee approved the legal fee on a 9-5 vote. It was just along party lines.
Okay.
In an interview with Hauser, GOP Speaker designate Lisa DeMuth. Is that how you say it, or is it DeMuth? I go with DeMuth.
Yeah, I think you're right.
DeMuth said, we received a copy of the settlement agreement, and it was shocking. It's a resignation agreement between a private employer and a sitting representative. But it was an agreement that was made, and now the taxpayers are on the hook for the legal fees. She added, even though the House had been put on the hook to pay those private legal fees, we weren't party to this agreement, nor did we ever see it. That is why this is absolutely wrong for Minnesota taxpayers. When asked about what her next steps would be, DeMuth said, I will be sending a letter Monday to the chair of the Rules Committee, Jamie Long, asking him to call a special rules meeting to revisit this. I would like to see this reversed. 5 Eyewitness News reached out to the House DFL caucus for comment from DFL leaders or Representative Vernig, and they chose not to return a phone call. They said, we'll take a pass on this. Well, Vernig, you pay your own GD legal bills. No evidence has been put forth that her there's a couple things we don't know.
Okay.
No evidence that I'm aware of suggests that her job as a legislator, how do I phrase this? Has brought her, if her job as a legislator has brought unto her some financial burden because she's now getting paid less from her private employer, why is that my problem?
Shouldn't be our problem.
She decided to run for the legislature.
Right.
Why is that my problem? Nor do we know to what extent can the legislature, I don't trust the DFL, I don't trust any of them anymore. My belief in government has been shattered. But to what extent does the so-called DFL believe they can make an arrangement between Brightworks and the legislature? In other words, the legislature seems to be resting its belief that they should pay her legal bills because she worked for a nonprofit outfit that the legislature created back in 1976, as near as I can determine. The other thing we don't know is she makes what? What do you make as a rep? About $52,000 a year?
Something like that.
Yeah, Kyle sent it to me in mid-50s.
Yeah, you make, let's call it 50. Plus you get daily stipends and what have you, and I'm sure you get car mileage and everything else. So what we would really need to know to show the dramatic nature of this is, do you think she lost $50,000 in pay from her private employer? For all we know, she lost $10,000 in pay, or for all we know, she lost $100,000 in pay. I don't know. I also don't care. That's her problem. Why in God's name do I have to pay for it?